Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you all. It's the 7th of April. Feels like the 7th of February. It is a cold one out there today. Anyway, I just heads up. I'm seeing like error messages pop up on my computer suggesting that it might crash and burn during the program. So that's just in case I all of a sudden disappear or the mellifluous tones of my voice do so. Wow. As usual on a Monday, that's pretty much what I'm left to say to sum up the happenings of the prior 4 days when last we spoke. I've taken to sort of just ripping headlines out of the newspaper, the kind of stories that you don't go on to read because the headline sufficiently roils your gut and impacts your sleep, and any further detail would only make things worse. So here are three that I ripped out. They're often not the big stories. These are the ones inside the paper. They don't even merit in these ages full page or front page, coverage. Here's one. FDA layoffs could raise nation's drug costs and erode food safety. Okay, yeah, I figured as much, but so what's there to worry about there? CDC cutbacks threaten public health. There's one. Okay, so we have our health threatened on a few fronts there. Drug costs going up, our food maybe containing poisons, and public health in general just going down the tubes. And then there was this, which I particularly enjoyed. Trump denies car exhaust contaminates environment. Well, there you go. All that worry for nothing. I'm telling you. What a bunch of really Cassandras we have become. Trump says car exhaust is like mother's milk. Forget about it. No worries. Okay? Those are just a few. And then, again, not any of those stories did I go on to read because, well, as we often say, self-care. Speaking of self-care, I, of course, attended the hands-off rally downtown. I know there were a few others people could go to. I went to the downtown one. I had a friend who decried the fact that there were more than one to go to in Pittsburgh because she said, why don't they get it that the idea is to have an impact, and you have an impact by the numbers, by the optics of one huge crowd instead of dispersing the demonstrations by creating 3 different venues. And all of them, it's not like they were thousands of miles apart. They were not. One was downtown, one was in Oakland, and one was in, Shadyside. And I don't know about the Oakland one, but all were that I saw the Shadyside one as well, were very well attended, which you would not, of course, know by having consumed local news. I did not make a point of looking for all the television coverage. Actually, because it was a Saturday, a lot of local news is, I don't know, sort of out to lunch. But I had expected better than what I did end up seeing, which was visuals that did not adequately show the strength of the crowd on Grant Street. I think it was the Tribune Review which covered it, and that said something like 6,000 people were there. That's a big demonstration, 6,000 people on a threatening rain Saturday. That's big in this town. Not as big as I'd like. I'd like the streets to just be, jam packed so that people are on side streets where they can't hear a damn thing that's going on, where you just put your body out there. But I was informed by some that the Post Gazette pretty much didn't even cover it, or it wasn't front page coverage. What the hell else was going on Saturday in Pittsburgh, PA, that the local newspaper, the Scab paper, which I don't read, would not have that as above the fold front page, that picture of 6,000 people in front of the city county building. Now, I do want to say this. I'm no good at estimating crowd size, but I don't think it was 6,000 myself. I would have put it more at 3 to 4, but I don't know. I've never been good at that. So I do not know. The signs were marvelous. A lot, and the fact that so many people bothered to make signs and to express their concerns, their rage, their senses of humor. It was heartening. The other thing that I noted was the age of the crowd. I thought it skewed old, which is not bad, but then there were plenty of younger people there, but there were a lot of geezers, and I mean I count myself as one. There were a lot of us folks with white hair and on canes and wheelchairs, and yeah, a lot. And I found that really heartening because I have said, and I will say again, that if anyone should be out front in the demonstrations against this lawless administration, it is old people, because we enjoyed the America we're trying to get back. And young people may never see it again. And the least we could do for having, just by luck, hit that sweet spot post World War II and pre fascism, that America was just an extraordinary place to be able to live in general, for the most part, for most people, but and obviously flawed, but wow, what did we know from flawed looking at us now? So I thought the crowd skewed old, a lot of old women, God bless them. And I, at one point, we were asked to sing. What did we sing? God Bless America, or America the Beautiful, or something. And boy, people were full throated in it. And then the group called the Raging Grannies did their rendition, which I couldn't quite make out the lyrics to, but that's because I'm an old lady. But I happened to see somewhere else, and I think it was in a Dana Milbank column uh, about all the things that are being destroyed uh, by Trump. And he pointed out that, God bless America, that thing we say all the time, and that song that was, it's iconic and written by an immigrant, Irving Berlin, as so many immigrants, a man who so appreciated and loved this country that had taken him in, and who gave back to the country, so much so that long after he's gone, we're full-throatedly singing a song he wrote about his love, God Bless America. But Dana Milbank suggested that the proper lyric and title of that song in these times should be God Help America. It is also a plea, a request. It only changes what we're asking of God. Help. And I love that idea. So I would hope that at all future rallies, which I hope will be plentiful and which will grow and grow and grow, that God help America is what we full-throatedly sing. The coverage, if I can get back to that, was so extraordinarily disappointing that I'm stunned. And when it comes to media, having lived in it most of my life, it's not like I'm I'm not naive. And for media to downplay what media love, which is drama, visuals, strong words, action, all of that. For the New York Times to essentially, their Sunday. Okay, so these rallies happened on Saturday, starting early, starting at noon. So could easily have gotten into their Sunday edition. Their Sunday coverage, at least the print paper that I still stupidly receive, um, the coverage of these rallies all over the United States, well over 1 million Americans turning out. I mean, I don't know if you've been able to find pictures of rallies from around the country, but some are mind-blowingly huge. And happily, I'm not talking necessarily about New York City or Washington, D.C. They're everywhere. There was a picture from my old hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, that who sent me that? Susan, I think. And it was, whoa. I know the street, and you couldn't see the beginning and the end. It was just huge throng of people. Someone sent me something from Phoenix. Huge crowd, huge crowds in Minneapolis, in Chicago, and in small towns all over this country, Asheville. Um, Huge. And even, as I said, when we didn't stick all our eggs in one basket so that the crowd would have had just one place to go, and we might have had 10,000 people there. The crowd at 5 p.m. In my neighborhood on 5th and Shady Avenue was big, and they were just lining that huge intersection, not impeding the traffic. And it was raining then, and there were people there, and I happened to go by it and honk my horn. And as I headed toward my home, I saw lots of people heading down toward it in the rain. Coverage? I don't think. I don't know. I barely saw. if any of you could tell me what the local news stations did. I know I saw one. It was, as I said, not memorable. And then the New York Times. So their coverage on Sunday, after well over 1 million Americans poured into the streets all over the country, in every state, that's newsworthy, folks, at this stage in a presidency, the honeymoon stage. The New York Times piece was on page 19. It wasn't even half a page. It was a tiny little thing with two little pictures. And as I read it, it became clear that it was written before the rallies. The reporter who wrote it, one Katie Benner, had not been to a rally. She wrote this thing beforehand. And it could be that it's because for the Sunday New York Times, what, you have to get your story in on at 2 a.m. on Saturday or something? Absurd. It was all in future tense. It hadn't happened. None of it. All of the quotes in this story are from organizers that she talked to and interviewed before the and she was left to say, this is the article, 500,000 people signed up to participate in Saturday's marches in all 50 states. This is buried, by the way, at the end. 500,000 people signed up. Now, here, and she mentions protests also took place in a number of foreign cities. Now, those might have actually already happened, and there could have been some pictures and coverage of that. But here's the thing. I didn't sign up. Did you? I know that you could go online and RSVP, which, frankly, I don't think even Miss Manners says you have to RSVP to a demonstration. You just show up. It's not like they're catering the event, okay? Now, yes, I know they'd sort of like to know who's coming. And believe me, the police, if they see the crowd's a lot bigger than was expected, they pull back and allow more space. But 500,000 people was not what really showed. Nobody quite knows, but it was well over twice that, if not 3 or 4 times that. That's now the numbers that reporters are going to use. Who was decorous enough to actually register for a demonstration? Give me a fucking break. So I don't think local TV did much. I don't think I know the PG apparently didn't do much, and not front page. Tribune Review did have an article out pretty quickly, and I was pleased to see it. And frankly, for me, it wasn't until this morning when I got my WESA, the NPR radio, local radio, in my mailbox that I saw a big article telling me who spoke, what was said, yada yada yada, and also giving me that crowd size. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. And the Washington Post managed to. They didn't cover it much at all. Believe me, I assure you, I read it, and yet they found time, I think it was the Post, to have this whole article about some woman who had voted against Trump and now was saying, oh, who gives a shit? Let him burn the whole thing down. That they went out of their way to find one woman with this contrarian, what the fuck, provocative. I didn't read it because I don't give a damn what this woman has to say. Hundreds of thousands of women and men and children, over 1 million, showed up to say what they thought. And the Washington Post couldn't be bothered to give it much coverage. Unbelievable. Or not. Really incredible. I'm sorry. Okay. There are a few things that I have read in the last few days that either scared the shit out of me, or I said yes, or whatever. The kinds of things that I immediately rip out and I want to share with you. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing that Ed says he saw coverage on TAE. Well, yeah, I'm not saying that they didn't necessarily send a reporter. Let me tell you, I worked in television news a long time, and I worked on the weekend as well. The weekend, there is a skeletal staff, and yet you have to fill some newscasts, not as many as during the week. But if you got some ready-made visual and audio, like a demonstration, and a demonstration that is the local part of something happening all over the country, that's a gift for your lead story, unless something huge happens. I don't know what they lead with, a house fire. Unbelievable. Ed says, I saw coverage on TAE, and I believe on This Week with Stefan. Yeah, well, sure, the national news covered this. Yeah, you can see what they're telling us. Unless we quadruple attendance, unless these things start really closing places down, they ain't going to get off their butts and cover it. And it also didn't need to get covered by them, in that anybody who was outside of their home and or drove by or saw the closed roads or saw the people standing on street corners with signs saw something. I don't know. One of the things that I read that chilled me, because I think it is right on the money, and you got to trust this. I've been reading a lot of things written by people who have lived in nations that have lost their democracies or never had them. But these are people whose life experience is about what it is to live in a place of fear, of people being grabbed up off the street and disappeared, of to live in a country in which you see the powerful acting frightened, powerful people like the guy who heads Amazon and the Washington Post, Bezos, bending the knee, like the guy who owns Meta, bending the knee, like these huge, 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 big law firms bending the knee, in fear, bullied, intimidated, trying to protect themselves. When you see universities cowering, when you see an entire Congress surrendering, when you see that kind of thing, even if you're not aware of it, it creates, obviously, an atmosphere of fear and self-defense. And for most people, that means shutting up, head down, pulling in, protecting the little they got. And that's how dictators rise. That's how democracy dies. And so people who've lived in these countries are writing pieces, and they're powerful. And they all have the same sense of, oh my God, look, I know this. I lived this, and here it is again. And if we don't listen to those voices, to those personal, heartfelt, real life experiences and testaments, then we have joined the crowd of the knee benders, of the ostriches, of the sheep. And if you're cool with that, fine. I happen to be made with a personality that could no more assume those subservient positions than, I don't know, fly. Incapable of it. All the kind of stuff that's going on makes me furious and makes me want to fight. And that's the only way we're going to survive. Everyone who doesn't join the fight is part of why the fight might be lost. So the thing I read specifically, I've seen it before, but this really struck me, that was in a much longer piece by Tom Friedman, and he'd just been in China. And the Chinese are watching. The Chinese people are watching. And they are having flashbacks. Friedman says this: when I was in China last week, more than a few people asked me if Trump was launching a cultural revolution the way that Mao did. Mao's cultural revolution lasted 10 years. And if you have any sense of that horror at the time, oh my God. It destroyed the entire economy. It set the zealots off, and they went after all the people who knew how to run things. They went after the bureaucrats. Mao thought they were not loyal, that they were opposing him. And Friedman says this is when people were sent to, re-education camps. he said what was happening in the United States was so much on the mind of one retired senior Chinese official. Okay, somebody who had a perspective from a position where he could see a lot. One retired senior Chinese official who emailed Friedman with a warning. Mao sent his young party cadres to attack, and here's what the guy said, anyone who could think. To attack the ruling elites, college professors, engineers, journalists, writers, doctors, people who read, people who were active. Why would he do this? Mao wanted, he said, to dumb down the entire population so that he could rule easily and rule forever. And this former Chinese official writes to Friedman and says, sounds a bit familiar with what's going on in the US. I hope not, he said. Friedman says if he has sown the wind, it's we, the people, who will reap the whirlwind. But so too will the rest of the world. We're seeing it play out with the global economy right now. And the world is worried. Robert writes, other than the speakers up front, I didn't see one black person in the crowd and very few college-age people. Yeah, I agree with that. It was an overwhelmingly white crowd, except, as you say, for one of the major organizers is a black woman. Yes, I saw that and remarked on it myself. I later saw that black people were telling each other to sit this one out, that they'd done enough, that this pretty much is on us. I hope I understand that. I hope that they will at some point come back, but I understand that sense. It's white people, overwhelmingly. And I don't know how big that black, leave it, let them deal with it thing is in regard to these particular demonstrations. But yeah, it clearly got through because they weren't there. And I also want to say, in regards to who was there, that like the first speaker that I heard, and it was, I think, at the very beginning, was identified as I think, black trans woman activist. And she was, full throated and gave a hell of a speech. But I was thinking, here again, if you want to grow this for this moment, you go with your first speaker is not representative of a distinct minority, transsexuals. The first speaker should be maybe an old woman, black, white, brown, I don't care, who's scared of losing her Social Security. It should be a veteran. It should be a federal worker. They did next have a scientist who was an immigrant. And it was a quibble, but when she started speaking, I thought, no, Who's producing this? That's not how you attract new people. You bring in new people as speakers, not the old stalwarts. The old stalwarts have to step back if we're going to create something that takes in everybody, even people who voted for Trump. You want to make it as it's the only chance. I'm just saying. It's the only chance. And then let us be clear, taking to the streets does not in and of itself do anything. It has to have actions, political action as well. And if you got those two things, you got a shot. But man, that crowd's got to grow and grow, and it's got to grow in, excuse the word, in its diversity. It has to be regular people who've never been at a demonstration. If it's going to just be the same old demonstration guys, then echo chamber ain't happening. And I saw hopeful signs that there were people there who were maybe first timers. But those are the people you got to get. And you get them by putting them front and center, by finding people like that to talk. Caller, if you're there, go ahead. Hello? Hello? Okay. No, so much for that. The best sign, and I didn't see it myself, somebody, and I don't think it was local, somebody sent me this sign, was from, I don't know, some woman holding a sign that she made. It had a picture of Trump on it. And the sign says, "Does this ass," and the ass is right there next to Trump's picture, "does this ass make my country look small?" I loved it. There was another one that said something like, I don't know, hands off Lesotho or something. And I said, what? What is that? I totally missed what how Trump had, disparaged this little tiny African nation in his stupid speech at Congress, which I didn't watch. Um, but it's a nation of like 2.5 million people or something. It's the size of, it's not as big as Massachusetts. Um, and it's always been a friend to the US, and that's been mutual. And he went after them, saying that they were getting these millions of dollars from the US for like LGBTQ something, which was a total effing lie. And there's a piece that just makes you want to weep in the paper today. I think it's in the New York Times about the ambassadors from Lesotho who was watching the speech, and when his country was mentioned, he almost fell out of his chair because, and then it was mentioned only to be laughed at, and then they got slapped with the highest tariff of anybody, I guess, 50% tariff, which will literally destroy their economy. I mean, again, the kind of just total malfeasance, of total incompetence. It's living in Trump's id. The whole world living in his id. What a frightening, horrific place to be. I had a friend who talked to me about the impact that just this the stock market crashing has had on her plans, on her life. She's getting very close to retirement. She's been dutifully saving so that she could have a retirement where she didn't have to be scared. She was building up in her IRA, and she was thinking, I'm pretty good. I think I can maybe retire in 5 years. And then the market erased a ton. And I realized that she is just one of millions upon millions of Americans. And if you're unlucky enough to be of a certain age now, too old to retire, but also too old to recover from what he's done financially. Those are the people that need to be at the next rally. Those are the people. Okay, I've got callers who come now, we see, I hope. Let's give you a shot. See if you're there. Hello.
Good morning, Lynn. I talked to you in the middle of March about going to D.C. with the veterans. And now that I see it picking up all over the country, but also all over the world, and I believe it's working because all of his sycophants all of a sudden that go to everything he does is wonderful are starting to backtrack and say, wait a minute, these tariffs are terrible. If these crowds weren't out there, they wouldn't say a peep. So I think that it's going to just keep getting more and more of us out there, and it's happening. It's not going to go backwards. It's going to go forwards. And on another note, in Switzerland, they march the streets with hats with the middle finger on it. I loved that. That was the best signs I've seen. So I'd like to get a couple of those hats myself. But at any rate, I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that when I went in mid-March, it was like 3,000. And now it's every week with the group I was with, but all over the country. I think we're onto something now.
Good, wonderful. It has to just keep growing and growing. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you have a great day, Lynn. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, it's how you do it. Just keep growing it. And we all have people in our orbits who never do this kind of thing. We all need to work on them and get them to go. Get them to go. Swell those crowds. Caller, go ahead.
Good morning, Rich from the North Hills.
Hi, Rich.
I got a song for your next protest march.
Okay.
My country 'twas of thee.
There it is too. Just change one word.
This may be a little off, but I thought it was appropriate considering the economy is crashing and everything. But I'll tie this in. Do you know the name Yip Harburg?
Yes, of course.
Yip Harburg, songwriter, New
Yeah,
York
great
City.
name too. He was like
Well, of
Irving
course,
Berlin. He was
yes,
of
Jew
that
immigrant,
of a time, Jewish immigrant. Yeah, songwriter.
and he won an Academy Award for the songs that he wrote for The Wizard of Oz.
Mm, yeah.
And that was 1939. But 8 years earlier, 1931, he wrote a song that became the anthem of the Depression. It was for a musical called Americana.
Huh.
Now, there were songwriters everywhere who were trying to lift the spirits of the country. The Depression was just crushing the country. There was just fear and emptiness and a hopelessness everywhere. And Harbaugh didn't want to sugarcoat it. He wanted a true representation of what was happening, of what people were going through. He wrote a song that I don't know if many people know. He wrote a song called Brother, Can You
You
Spare a
spare
Dime?
a dime. I knew it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to take a few seconds and just read some of the lyrics. It'll only be short here.
Do it.
Once I built a railroad, I made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we looked swell, full of that Yankee doodle dandy dum. 500,000 boots went slugging through hell, and I was the kid with the drum. So don't you remember? They called me Al. It was Al all the time. Why don't you remember? I'm your pal. Buddy, can you
You
spare
spare a
a
dime.
dime?
Oh, it makes me want to cry.
If you want to see a song that will rip your heart out, go to YouTube and look up George Michael singing this song in a concert in the year 2000 with a full orchestra behind him. And he poured everything into it. And at the end, it tears your heart out because he sings it in such a way that this guy asking for a dime is just wailing. He is so desperate. He is begging, please. I'm not asking for much, just a dime.
Wow.
And maybe we're headed that way.
We might be. Oh dear. Thank you for that, Rich. That powerful, powerful stuff.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah. Here we are. So he said he wrote that. Oh man, it's about 100 years old, and because we don't know our history, and we have to repeat it, apparently. Oh, that is wow. Strong stuff. Something else that's strong stuff that I do want to share with you, and I was just stunned by this. I hadn't, there's so much horror going on with the people being just uh, taken off the streets, or we're finding out pulled from their homes, right? And we now know that these people who are being taken away and disappeared, that you cannot trust that the authorities, the jackboots, the brown shirts, are telling you the truth. Gang members, murderers, this and that. Enough now has been known about these souls who are now rotting in El Salvador. We know the one guy, but enough reporting has been done that they now know that up to 75% of those people, those men who you saw humiliated, shackled, heads shaved, and stuck in what's supposed to be the hellhole jail of the world, which of course is the one Trump is giving tax dollars to keep these people. 75% of them had no criminal record. So I came upon a letter, and maybe I'm late to the game here. I had not seen this. It was a letter written by a school principal in Sackett's Harbor, New York. Okay? And he felt compelled to write this letter because 3 of his students have been disappeared. 3 students. Elementary school students. I'm going to read you his letter. As the principal of these students, I need to speak plainly. Our 3 students who were taken by ICE were doing everything right. They had declared themselves to immigration judges. They had attended court on their assigned dates, and they were following the legal process. They were not criminals. They have no ties to any criminal activity. They are loved in their classrooms. Their family has worked at the nearby Old McDonald's petting zoo and dairy farm for 15 years. They lived in a house on the same road as a home ICE had a warrant for. The fact that ICE went door to door is unfathomable. The fact that our students were handcuffed and put into the same van as the alleged criminal from down the street is unconscionable. And when I think of my 3rd graders' experience, my stomach twists and it's hard to breathe. We are in shock, and it is that shared shock that has unified our community in the call for our students' release. We are in direct communication with our students. Let me be clear. They are not being medically evaluated, which is what I said. They are not being questioned as potential victims, which was what I said. Calling a detention center by another name does not change what it is. We deserve better than this misinformation. My teachers and students are hurting. Please think about how long every hour feels for a 3rd grader in this detention center. The wait began a week ago. I have no other agenda. Please release my students and their mother back to our community. Now, this is America, guys. This is Donald Trump's America. I had this one other thing I wanted to share with you, but I don't have time. I had a number of things. So how's the stock market doing? Are we 20 points down by now? And you saw the pictures of Trump while people's retirement savings are going up in smoke. You saw what he did all weekend. Yeah. He went golfing and he bragged about winning his, oh boy, Dow falls 1,000 points as market collapse continues. The White House told CNBC that any talk of a 90-day pause in the tariffs is fake news. Well, yeah. So, what's been noted is that the last times that we've seen these kinds of drops, they were caused by, well, COVID. The world went into a global pandemic and closed down. So it wasn't a politician that caused that. It was a virus. Or when you think of, like, if you can think back to 2007, 2008, that housing crash. That was caused by the geniuses on Wall Street. But people who look at history of the economy say they cannot point to another instance when one man, one president, had inflicted so much damage on the financial markets, and for no apparent reason. And despite the fact that people are frightened, are struggling, are losing money, when a millionaire and a billionaire loses some money, I'm not crying, okay? But when hardworking people, a lot of them people who voted for him because he said he'd correct the prices they were paying, when he does this and blows everything up and breaks everything so that there will be no quick recovery. I keep thinking of how difficult it is to build anything, let alone a functioning economy or governmental agency. It happens over generations and decades. And mistakes and corrections, and they come in. This despicable evil, Musk, and the despicable evil president, and they kick it down in weeks. Destruction for destruction's sake. And if these Chinese guys and the other people who have lived through totalitarianism, if they're saying to us, hey, this is what they do, they take out all of the people who know how to run anything. They break it so that they can rebuild it to their benefit. And we just sit here and watch. The crowds that came out this weekend suggest that more and more people are getting that no, we do not just sit. There is nothing assured about us somehow surviving this. There is nothing assured about it. And anybody who is acting as if it's just another crisis might as well be on the wrong side. It's that dire. Okay. I guess that's it. I've got so much stuff here I wanted to talk about and never got to, but such is life now, right? So thank you all for being there. I'm glad the technology didn't melt down as it had been threatening to do, and God help America. God help America.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.